By now, I'm sure you're familiar with a variety of different paperless programs that you can use to write contracts. RDocs, DocuSign, the Remind Docs Plus. And today I want to show you one that you may not be familiar with, but that is one of my favorites, and it's called AppFiles. If you are with the RE/MAX around Atlanta East Cobb office, then you're very familiar with AppFiles. You've used AppFiles previously. And we're showing this to you today because there's a possibility that we may offer this to our agents in the future as an alternative to using Remind or to using whatever other paperless program they ultimately end up having if they decide to do away with Remind. AppFiles is a great program. It's very easy to use. It's very easy to organize. Like I said, a lot of our East Cobb agents currently use the program. And it is a great way to track documents. You create app files so that you can have, you can write contracts inside of your app file. You can send for electronic signatures inside of your app file. Your electronic signature session gets its own unique link that's copyable and pastable into another email. You can track email in and out of your file. And I just want to give you a quick overview of what it looks like and give you the opportunity to consider it, and also provide you with some resources to look at if you want to learn more about it. From the top to the bottom, you personalize your app file by clicking on here and uploading your photo. You can go into this settings for anything that you need as far as your account goes, your photo, your email address. You can create an email footer that will be active for your file. Essentially, you copy this link, send this email, your email footer as you want it to appear, and then every time you email out of AppFiles, that footer then is going to appear on your emails. There are a lot of functions that are very helpful and very useful that you may not find in some of the other paperless programs. One of the things that I like particularly is this option called Form Values, where you set your default values. Essentially, what you can do is you can select the forms that you use the most. For instance, the purchase and sale agreement. And in this user default values screen, you can pre-fill in anything that you know is not going to change from transaction to transaction. For example, all of your information on the back page. If you use this form values section and you fill in your brokerage agreement information, and then your sellers put your information in on both sides as if you were on both sides of the transaction, every single time that you add this form to a new app file, all that information is going to be there. And you can also import information from FMLS and Georgia MLS by using a quick button to, it's going to basically pull that information in and populate it throughout the form. So whatever is available in FMLS, address, the lot and legal information, anything that can be pulled in from FMLS should be able to populate right into the form. So there are quite a few features that are very nice and very user-friendly. I'm going to just show you very quickly how you would create an app file, what you do to add forms to it, and how easy it is to obtain an electronic signature. Again, I'm just giving you a very quick overview just so that you have the opportunity to review it and to see what this looks like. So let's create a new app file. One of the other things that I really like about app files is we can take forms from our own organization, load them into the back end of app files, and then I can go through and make each blank fillable and relate it to blanks that happen in the other files and forms that are already stored in a library inside of app files. So when you import information, they'll import to these other forms. For instance, all of the RE/MAX around Atlanta forms will be accessible and fillable And it's something that we can control ourselves. So that is also extremely handy. So when you're setting up a new app file, essentially you're going to start by giving it a name, like in other paperless programs where you write contracts and write offers and work with client paperwork. Typically what you want to do is you want to use the property address as the title. Unless you're working with a buyer and you don't yet have an address, you can put in the buyer's name. Nice thing about this, super easy for you to change the name, and you can get to that from several places on your dashboard. So for now, let's call this 4312 Test Street. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to drop this caret down over here, and you're going to pick out what kind of a file this is. Is this a listing? Are you working with buyers? Are you writing an offer? Primarily, what you're probably going to be doing is picking either listing or listing seller or buyer contract. There is also an opportunity here for property management. You can select that something is agent trash if you want to get rid of it, and then the admin staff can take the trash out for you. And really, this is for your own benefit so that you know what you're looking at. And you can change your file type as well. If you are working with a buyer and ultimately they go under contract and you would like to change it so that it says contract, easy to do. So for now, let's just assume that we are working with a listing, and our customer name is going to be Mr. Mitch Testerson. And he is going to be selling a townhome. This information is really just for you so that you can keep it straight at a glance and you know exactly what this is, because you're going to be able to archive this information. So in 5 years, if you want to go back and you want to work with the same person again, all of their information is going to be there and you're going to be able to pull that back up. In this other notes section, anything that you feel is important. The list date, just notes about the contact information, something that you want to remind yourself. This person came from a referral from someone that I sold to in 2018 in Peachtree Corners. Any of that information that is just going to be kind of a quick at a glance that will help you to navigate through having a transaction with someone. It's handy to put this here. It's not required, but you can. I'm just going to click on next. Here's the other interesting thing that I quite like about using AppFiles. You can pick who your users are from the first screen. You'll see all of these users on my left-hand side are members of my organization of AppFiles. There are certain users who are always going to have access. Your administrative staff is always going to have access and it cannot be removed. But let's say for some reason you were going to be working with a particular agent on this file, you could always go through and just add them very quickly. And that way, when they logged in, they would see as a part of their initial dashboard this file. Otherwise, they are not going to see your information. Only people that are going to be able to see the information when they log into AppFiles are you, the file owner, and anyone who you designate in this screen to have access. And it's very easy to do. Let's just say, for instance, that I'm going to be working with Marie LaSalle on this file. All I need to do is click this plus sign, move her over into the access column, and then every time she logs in, she is also going to be able to see this file and she can manipulate it. She can add documents, she can send out for signatures, she can change things. It's very handy. So now I have a shared user on the file, but I don't have to ever have shared users other than the people who are the administrative staff. They will always appear as required users, essentially. That way, we can always get in and access your file on the back end and help you to correct anything that needs to be corrected, or even just, hey, can you help me? I'm out in the field. It'd be really handy if you could send that paperwork to my client. The staff can log in and see exactly what it is that you're looking at and send it out on your behalf. So now I'm going to create my app file. So you noticed again, I have this multi-step little wizard that's going to help me to set my app file up from the beginning and step through all of the pieces. So at this point, I can not unlike most of the other paperless programs that you've worked with in the past. I can click on this button to add forms, and then I open up a library of all of the available forms. The forms get organized into what we call packs. The different packs are helpful to have at a glance anything that you're going to need to work with a certain kind of client. We will have a seller pack, we'll have a buyer pack, we'll have listing resources. And the other nice thing too is, again, because we can manipulate and add and vectorize our own documents, if you have a document that you like to use, maybe something that is part of your team system, you work with a team, part of your team system is you like to have this particular cover sheet that all the information gets filled out every single time. Or let's say that you work with a closing attorney who always sends you the same seller information sheet, and you would like that to be available to you in AppFiles so that you could just add it to the file quickly, send it along with the signature, and have your client fill it in. You can send that to me. I will personally put it in, make all of the blanks fillable. And then every single time that you're ready to use that form, you're just going to browse to it, select it, add it to your app file, and you can send that along just like you were sending along any other piece of the contract. So that's extremely handy as well. So unlike other paperless programs, we have the ability to essentially create our own, let's call them smart forms, if you will. So just as in primarily most of these paperless programs that you're going to be using, you can search for the form that you're looking for, and it is a character match. So as I begin to type, it's going to eliminate anything that does not have the character that I'm looking for. Here's my purchase and sale agreement. I can add that in. I can also, again, select a form package by dropping this down and picking out a form package that has been pre-created. We're going to be essentially hand tooling these packages for what people need. And we have the ability to, at the staff level and at your administrative level, have the ability ourselves, in essence, to create these packs and to manipulate them into whatever it is that we want them to be. So again, just for the sake of showing you a little bit about how this is going to work, I'm going to add this selected form by clicking the button here. But first, I also have, let's add a couple of things just so that we can see what this looks like. I'm adding forms into my app file list, my form list, by hitting the plus sign over here on the left-hand side. If I accidentally add something that I don't want, I can always hit the minus sign on the right-hand side and move it to the left. You have a couple of options when you're adding documents. You can add everything as one merged form. That's helpful if you want to quickly write an offer and everything's together and you just scroll through the pages. Or you can add them as separate individual forms, and that can be helpful if there are things that you're going to add that you're not necessarily going to send to all of the parties. For example, you might not necessarily want to send the commission agreement to everyone on the transaction. You could always add that separate. You could add everything as a separate form. But even if you add them all together as one big gigantic form, once you're in there, you always have the ability to open those back up and split those back out into separate documents, which is also extremely handy. You also have the ability to go into one single document, isolate each page, change the order of the page, get rid of the pages that you don't necessarily need, and combine them with other documents. I have never before worked with a system where you can do so many things, where it is so hands-on, and you have the ability to create strike-throughs, correct pages that are incorrect, delete a duplicate page if it's accidentally gotten scanned in twice. You can upload, you can scan right to this file. So I'm going to, for the purposes of just showing you how this works, add these as separate individual forms. And again, you can add as a merged form or as a separate form. And for this purpose, let's go ahead and we'll add them as separate forms just so we can see what that looks like once they get in there. The other thing that you can do from the beginning, and this is also incredibly handy, there are some pre-loaded sections that you can go ahead and organize your paperwork into. Are these agent documents? Are they broker docs that are going to be sent for review? Are these financial docs? Is there a pre-qual letter? Is there a proof of funds or a bank statement and you want to organize that to a certain place? Are there things that maybe are not necessarily going to be a part of the contract per se, but that you need to keep? There's a need to keep section. So for now, let's go ahead and put these into just the general paperwork. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to move things from one section to the other once you get it in there. This is the other interesting thing. Again, you have a lot of tools at your disposal with AppFiles. You can create a section that's going to work for your own needs by clicking this new section. I can name it anything I want. For now, I'm going to call it test section. And that section is always going to be there as long as there are documents in there. Just like with any of these other paperless programs that you can use to write contracts, you have to verify these with your NRDS number or a purchased number that allows you to use the GAR forms. So when you add these forms in, what happens automatically if they are separate forms is the first form on the list automatically opens up, and the presumption is that you're going to start working with this form. But you don't have to. You can close that out, and here you have 3 forms here in this section. You'll note also too that as I roll over this, a little pencil pops up right over the end of this section bar. I can edit the section title at any time. Let's say I want to call this something that maybe is a little bit more meaningful and is going to help me to remember when I created this. I could always call this test section and then give it today's date and save that. So there's a lot of features that you can use in AppFiles that are extremely handy. I'm going to focus on 2 right away because I think that they are some of the most important. These are some of the things that are probably going to be the most likely to encourage you to maybe want to give AppFiles a try. Number 1, you can import values from several places by using this import values. You'll notice when I open this up, I have all of these very obviously interactive blanks. And in every place that I click, I can type text. I can put information in here, but I can also pull it in from other sources because each of these is an active link. So I can click on import values up here at the top, and on any of these forms that are forms from AppFiles, I can import information from another form. Let's say it's a similar form that you have, whether it's in this app file or another app file. It doesn't even have to be from the same file, which is extremely handy, especially if you, for instance, wrote an offer for someone and it fell through. Maybe it didn't quite work and you're now getting ready to write another offer. You could browse to that other app file, pull in their information, and have it in this form. You can import from information fields. Those information fields are on your main dashboard. If you go ahead on your main dashboard and you fill in all the contact information for buyer, seller, co-oping agent, listing attorney, there's a very easy way to label which each of these contacts are, and you can pull information into the form from those fields. So that's very handy as well. But one of the most important features, and this is one of the more recent features that AppFiles has introduced to us. I say recent because now AppFiles is several years old, but it was only in the last couple of years that you were able to do this, probably maybe in the last 3 years. You can now import information from the FMLS. So that means that this program, even though it's not hosted with FMLS, it is interactive with FMLS. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to find an FMLS number. We're going to import that information, and I just want to show you how that works. The other thing that's quite good is you can import information from any kind of an FMLS file, whether it's active, under contract, pending sale. Let's say you're doing a relist of something and you just want to be able to have that information and pull in as much as you can. You could pull in information from another listing. So just for our purposes, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull information in from something that is now currently active. By putting this information in here. Okay, so I have put in the information for 222 12th Street, unit number 1502, just random FMLS number that I pulled from the FMLS service. At this point, I can choose what information gets imported. There are a variety of blanks in the FMLS data form that match blanks that occur in our contract forms. A lot of them are going to be pretty universal. The property address, the city, the county, the zip, the MLS number. But then it's also going to import some things that are kind of a little tedious to have to try to find and transcribe. For instance, the tax ID, deed book, deed page, the lot, the district, any of these fields that have been matched to any of the fields that exist on our FMLS system are able to be filled. It's also automatically going to pull from the listing information page. So that means that the listing brokerage firm, their name, their license number, cell phone, fax number, the address, all of that information is going to get pulled in. You're asked to acknowledge a disclaimer that essentially says that you are importing this data and that although it has not been reviewed by AppFiles, it comes from a third party, AppFiles is a pass-through conduit that enables you to pull the information in, but it does not validate how accurate it is, and it also is a message of indemnification for anything that gets pulled in that is incorrect. All that having been said, when you pull information in from any other source, you want to make sure that you're going to tab through each blank and just make sure that it is correct. Because again, you're working with someone else's data that they've put in if you're importing from someone else's listing. So you acknowledge the terms by selecting the box, and then you're just going to start the import. Here's the other cool thing. You can do multiple imports on the same form. So you could import from FMLS. You could then import your buyer information from one of your other forms and or from the information fields, or you could do a variety of those combinations to get this as filled in as possible before you have to go through and begin to just put the fine touches on it, the offer date and things of that nature. So if you scroll through here now, you can see that a lot of this information is already populated. Already also see that because we pulled this in from the AppFiles form library, there are already places on the form that you can use to get initials. So I am going to go ahead and I am going to obtain an electronic signature from my purchaser. So let's go ahead and we'll just put this information in here. And for now, I am going to be the buyer. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my email address in here as well. Okay. And so at this point, this is, let's just say, for instance, for the sake of our tutorial, that this is ready to sign. Right here in the middle of the page, there's a gigantic blue button that says request signature. And I'm just going to go ahead and request the signature. And we are going to start the signature request. First thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you use your signer's full legal signing name in this space. Because if they elect to just touch the option that they're going to receive an email that will give them a couple of options. One of the options is they can sort of scratch their signature, or like in other paperless document programs, they're going to be able to select one of the fonts and have that be their electronic signature and agree that this takes the place of any ink signature. It's pretty standard. So you just want to make sure that first letter is uppercase, the rest of the letters are lowercase, it is spelled correctly. If your signer uses a middle initial, that is present. You want to put your punctuation after your middle initial, and just be mindful that it should be typed the same way that your signer would legally sign if they were using a paper and pen. Other thing that is very important to remember is, let's say you have two people who are going to be purchasing. You want to make sure that you always have the first person as buyer 1 and the second person as buyer 2. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my name in here. And I am going to indicate that I am signing for buyer 1. Buyer signature and buyer signature 2 means that buyer signature is buyer 1 and buyer signature 2 is buyer signature 2, obviously. And at the same time as I do the signing, I'm also going to send this for initials. This is also a very interesting feature. You can allow your client to, while they are signing, also to fill in any of these other blanks by selecting one of these boxes. These will activate their permission to put characters in these blanks. So for example, if they're the last person to sign and then they're supposed to put in the binding agreement date, you can uncheck all of them except for this binding agreement date. Let's see, the binding agreement date and then the binding filled in by. We can give them permission to use these blanks. We can also require that they sign these blanks in order for the signature to be considered complete. So not only can you give someone the ability to type their own information in there, which would be extremely handy, especially on something like a seller's property disclosure statement, you can also require that some characters are filled into that blank in order for that session to be complete. So I'm going to require that I put in the binding agreement date and that I put in my name that shows who filled that in. So I'm going to click on next. And then you get an email screen that pops up. Again, like most of the different modules inside of AppFiles, for the most part, you're going to get a wizard that's going to pop up just like this one, that's going to walk you through each step. Here's what you do first. Here's what you do second. The next tab is where you write your message. So I'm going to make sure that I'm going to send this to the right person. This is your subject line that your signer is going to see. You can modify the message inside of this space. Hey, please sign this document. Also, you have spell check already built into the program, which is extremely handy. And this bracketed word link is where a link is going to be inserted that is going to represent the signing session. And it's easy to access, it's easy to manipulate, and it's extremely easy to see when your client has signed. So you can modify anything that happens below or above that bracketed link. You don't ever want to change that because that's where it's a placeholder for the link that's going to be created automatically when we hit send for this signing session, let's say. So I'm going to touch next. You could also select who you would like to have notified once something is signed. For the purposes of this, I'm going to make sure that everyone gets notified. And now my signature request has been sent. So you get a little dashboard here at the bottom of your signature request screen that shows that you have an active individual signature request. It shows which signer is active, what their email is. Very easily here on the right-hand side, oh no, I forgot to put the price in. You can cancel the request and it will cancel that link and make it not live anymore. You can also, let's say it's been a couple of hours and no one has responded, quickly click on this green button to resend it. Let's say that you're having an issue with your email, or your client's having an issue with their email, but they could get a text. You could copy this, paste it into any other Facebook Messenger, email and send it to their SMS text email address. Do that from your phone by using the AppFiles app or going into it through the Puffin browser, which is going to treat this like Chrome. Copy that link and text it to them. Anywhere that you can paste this link, your client can click on it and open it up and work with the information and start a signing session. That is one of the things that I find so valuable about this program. So there is a lot of information that we could talk about AppFiles, but for right now, I just wanted to give you a very quick overview. I hope that you find this helpful, and I also hope that you have the best of luck with any document program that you decide to use. Thanks so much.